Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios. Couple questions have come up on, the different types of airbrushes that I use, and how easy they are to clean, and what they can be used for, and just several different very good questions. And I have had a lot of questions on, is it easy to clean an airbrush? How do you clean an airbrush? So what I decided to do is I'm going to be using my Grex tritium series to do the Spastic Chrome on a few of my parts that I have ready, and I need to get this thing cleaned out. So what I've done is I went ahead and done a quick cleaning on it, and while I was doing that I was thinking, well, let me go ahead and do a video for anybody that's wants to see how easy an airbrush is to clean out, especially the Grex series. So I'm going to pan the camera down here, show you what we're going to use to do it, and the quick procedure on cleaning up your airbrush. Okay, this is the Grex Tritium series pistol grip. Very nice airbrush. This airbrush here, you can interchange 3 different needles and nozzles in it for different spray patterns. Like I say, it is pistol grip and it is trigger. And very comfortable, very well balanced. Even when you put paint in the cup, this is the medium cup here. Even when you put paint in this cup, it still stays pretty balanced in your hand because the air hose actually counterbalances a little bit also. So very comfortable airbrush to use, and I use this one probably the most out of any of them. And I also have a Grex. What is that thing? That is an XT. Which is also pistol grip, but the cup sets off to the side of that one. This is a center gravity feed, and very nice airbrush. This airbrush here is right around, for the kit's right around $200, and if anybody's looking to buy an airbrush, I highly recommend this one. Very nice airbrush, very quality made, very easy to use. It takes a little while, just like with anything else, of learning the procedures and how to adjust it and do things like that, but and how to get your paint the right consistency to spray properly. And once you get through all that, and this airbrush right here is like I say, I highly recommend it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this thing apart, and I'm going to show you the procedures that I use to clean mine out. And there may be other procedures out there. These are the ones that I use. They work great for me. I don't have any issues with it. So here we go. So what we're going to do first is we have a wrench that comes with the this kit when you get it, and always keep this in a safe place where you know where it's at. And we're going to be using some lacquer thinner. I have in an old Pro Weld bottle here. I'm going to be using a Q-tip and a blue shop towel. First thing you want to do is to take your cap off of the cup. And you will notice as you get the spray in and mixing paints and stuff, you'll get a lot of buildup that gets on the top of the cap here. There's also a vent hole in the very center of the cap. You need to make sure that that's clean at all times. And like if I'm spraying along or whatever, and it seems to be, having a little bit of an issue or whatever, I'll just take a toothpick and just drop into that hole just to make sure that it's cleaned out before I start spraying. But that's the cap. You want to make sure that gets cleaned up. And all I do to clean up the cap assembly itself is to put a little bit of lacquer thinner on your cloth. And I'll basically just come in here and kind of, form the shop towel to the radius and the little steps and stuff in the cap, and I'll get all the stuff out from underneath of this lip right here and just kind of spin it on my finger like that to get the stuff out of the inside of it. Just wipe the top off, and that's pretty much all there is to the cap. And then the cup assembly just unthreads, and be very careful with these threads that you don't drop anything on them or drop this on the floor or something like that, because you don't want to mess your threads up. Cleaning this piece out here is very easy. You can wipe off the outside of it like that. And the inside of it, you just basically go in. I take my finger and wrap in the cloth and just put it right down into the cup and spin it. And you could also go in with a Q-tip if you have something you can't really get to, or right down in this, right where the threads are. You can go in with a Q-tip and just kind of run it back and forth in there with some lacquer thinner on it. And that's all there is to cleaning up the cup. Okay, now we get into actually taking the airbrush apart, which on these Grex airbrushes, it's a very simple process. Here on the back of it, you want to unscrew this piece here. And this kind of stuff here doesn't really need to be cleaned. No paint or anything gets into this. And then you have a little cap here on the back of it that's threaded. And you want to spin that. You don't need to take it all the way off. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. And what that does is it releases the needle. And you slide the needle out, and you want to be very careful with this needle that you don't bend it. Especially on the end. This happens to be the fine needle, and it can be bent very easy. So we're going to lay that to the side. And then the next thing that you want to do is you want to come up on the cap, and you're going to unscrew the cap. And what that opens up is the little fluid nozzle that's in the end of this, and it has a hex on it. And this little wrench has a hex on it. And all you want to do is line up the hex and give that a twist. Now when you're doing that, be very careful that you do not dent this little fluid cap on the end where the needle comes through. It's a very fragile little piece. It does not take dropping. It does not take basically any touching of this part here. I have ruined a couple of them by not paying attention. So be very careful with this little piece, and do this in an area where you're not on top of carpet or something like that, because if you lose this little thing, it's about 30 bucks to replace it. So take that piece out, and then what that does is that will open up where the paint comes in the top here. It'll flow out right here. So right now at this point in time, we have the airbrush pretty much opened up and ready to be cleaned out. And the way that I go about doing that is to take a toothpick and just check and see if you have anything back in this area here. And if you do, the easy way to do this is just kind of push this through. If there's any buildup or whatever back in this little channel here. And I'm doing this just with a toothpick. And I'm pushing that back through. And as you can see, there is a little bit of stuff in there. It came out on the toothpick. Actually, I cleaned this thing up a little bit, but I didn't do a real fine job on it, so that's why I decided to go ahead and do the finish cleanup on video here, and just to show you, what the process is. So we're cleaning out that part right there. Okay, we have that part cleaned out. Now, if you go up to where your paint goes in the top right here, a little trick that I've learned to doing this is to take your Q-tip, and I'll dip the Q-tip in the lacquer thinner, and just take the Q-tip and set right down into this area here and bottom it all the way out and just spin it in your fingers. And what that will do is pick up all the stuff that's in the very bottom of this airbrush, and just spin that around. And if you want to check and see if you've got it all out of there, you just dip the other side of the Q-tip in your lacquer thinner and go ahead and put it in there and spin it around just like that. And like I say, I've already cleaned most of this out, so this one here is pretty much good to go. So as far as cleaning out the internals of the airbrush, that's all there is to it. Make sure you've got all the paint out of here and all the paint out of this channel that comes through here where the needle rides, and that's all there is to cleaning up that part of the airbrush. And then you have your cap. I usually take my my Q-tip that's soaked in lacquer thinner and just kind of spin it around the cap. And this has a step in it, so you want to try to get down in those that recess right there. Not a big necessity, but I like to make sure it's pretty clean there on the end, especially when I'm switching over to a different color, or painting a cab or something like that. I make sure this is very, very clean. When I'm doing my chassis and stuff, I don't really worry about it all that much. So that's all there is to cleaning that out. And we'll just spin it on the cloth here. And that part's cleaned up. And the needle assembly, the easiest way that I found to do the needle assemblies is to take a little bit of lacquer thinner, put it on your cloth, take your needle, point end out away from you, and come into where your lacquer thinner is on your cloth, and just kind of lightly slide this all the way through, just like that. Like I say, don't put any side pressure on this, don't bend this needle. That's very critical. You don't want to bend the needle. It will affect the way the airbrush sprays, and then you'll have to buy a new needle assembly, or, you know, there is a process of straightening it out somewhat. I'm not going to show that process right now, so, but the best thing is just be careful with this and don't bend the needle. And that's pretty much what we have there. And the other thing that I do is I will take the needle and very carefully set it in the nozzle and slide it through and make sure that the needle comes out of the end of the nozzle, and that pretty much cleans that out. Now, another little trick that you can do with these is you can take a little bit of Tamiya polishing compound or Novus, the light compound, and you can put on the very end of your needle. With the stuff on the very end of the needle, set your fluid cap down on top of it and just lightly spin the fluid cap on your needle. And what that does is it actually buffs the taper where the needle and the fluid nozzle set together and makes it nice and clean, gets everything out of it, and it also helps smooth out the surface, so you get it back to factory fresh. And I do that about, you know, once every month or something like that, or if I get into a point where the needle's not spraying properly or the gun's not spraying properly, I'll go in and check this and make sure everything's, you know, cleaned up in that area. So that's how you do that. And then if you've got compound on it, just, you know, wipe your needle back off again. And, you know, you can soak this in lacquer thinner. If you've got a little cup and you want to make sure everything's nice and clean, take a little glass cup, put some lacquer thinner in it, and set this stuff in it overnight. And come back the next day, get your parts out, wipe them off, and you're good to go with that. Now, to reassemble the airbrush, very simple process. It's just a reversal of what, you know, how we took it apart. So we're going to take our fluid nozzle, and like I say, make sure you start this by hand, and it will thread all the way back in by hand. There is no real tension on this. Do not mess up these threads or that fluid cap. Be very careful with that. It's an expensive little item to replace. And all you need to do is just snug it down with the wrench. You don't need to put a lot of pressure on it, just enough to tighten it up. Take your cap, thread your cap back on. That part's done. Slide your needle back in, all the way in until it seats. And to know if you have it seated, flip the airbrush up and see if you see the point of the needle come out of the end of the cap there. If you do, you have it. That sits in that position. Tighten down your little cap back here. That puts the tension on the needle. That allows the needle to slide back when you pull the trigger. And screw your back of your airbrush on. Tighten that down. Put your color cup back in. Now, get it started here. There we go. Put that back in. Thread it down. Just a little twist is all it needs. Put the main cap back on. And the last thing that I do with it is, well, one of the last things that I do with it is I'll take a little bit of lacquer thinner and put on my cloth, and I will come over top of the outside of the airbrush. I'll pull the needle or the trigger back and get underneath of where the trigger sets when it's in its rested position. I'll get that cleaned up, and I'll just kind of give it a full wipe down, the handle and everything, just to get it back to, you know, looking like it's brand new. It's very nice chrome on these airbrushes, cleans up very good. And we have that all cleaned up now. And the final step that I do is I'll go over to the spray booth and I will take the cap and put about a cup of lacquer thinner in here. just straight lacquer thinner. And this has very nice seals in it that are solvent resistant, so lacquer thinner does not hurt these airbrushes. And with your lacquer thinner in there, put your cap back on and turn your paint flow up and turn your air pressure up a little bit, pull the trigger and flush the airbrush out. And before you use all of the lacquer thinner that's in your cup, turn your air pressure down a little bit and take your finger and put over top of the cap, press it tight and pull the trigger back, and what will happen is that will backflow the lacquer thinner up into your color cup, and it will actually push anything that's in here back out and get it nice and clean. And at that point, while I'm holding the trigger back, I will take the airbrush and flip it over like this so that the all the stuff that it's trying to flush out comes to the top of it, and flush that out. And that's pretty much all there is to it. That's doesn't take a whole lot to clean a grex and put it back together. So that'll give you a quick little tutorial there on how to do it. Like I say, I highly recommend these. They're about $200 for the kit. And like I say, you can get the different needles and nozzles for it. And so if anybody has any questions or concerns on this video about the grex airbrushes, just leave me a message and I'll get back to you on that. And like always, I thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye bye.